I will open the meeting and give everybody a chance to take a look at the agenda. I was negligent in posting it to the shared drive. So the agenda is there. And unless there are questions on the agenda or minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve the agenda and minutes.
Is there a
Second.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Agenda and minutes are approved. So the next thing on the agenda is update on the actions that I've taken over the course of the last month based on our prior meeting. So I'm going to cover agenda items A and D kind of at the same, actually A, B, and D at the same time. So I did meet with the supervisors the week following our meeting. I reviewed with them our four-part plan of updating the state of the county, figuring out how to grade the goals, and then work with the public to establish new goals and then reassess the strategies. They were okay with that broad plan. I also discussed with them our desire to work with NICOG on assistance on update of the plan, not just the first section of the state of the county, but perhaps some assistance with surveys and things of that nature. So they okayed me to reach out to NICOG. So Matt O'Brien has joined us on the call this evening. We'll introduce Matt and get him online with us here shortly. So we're okay to go with that. With regard to the grading for the accomplishment of the goals, I told them that our thoughts were along the lines of working with the county department heads to get their assessment of the accomplishment of the goals, reach out to the committee members that helped establish the goals in the first place in the plan that was approved on 2006, and then work with the county just citizens at large, whether it be random sample or some fashion, to get an assessment from the citizens as to how well the county has done on accomplishment of those goals. They thought those were all really good ideas. I asked them also about what their thoughts were on how we should go about assessing goals for the new plan once we've graded the existing ones, to kind of validate them and see if there are some additional ones. I noted to them that one suggestion was perhaps work with the township trustees, since we know who those people are already, and they are familiar with the issues in their townships. And they thought that was an excellent idea and suggested that we do that. So we could form a committee at large out of the zoning commission and the township trustees when we get to that stage on developing goals for the new plan. So that was the feedback during that conversation with the supervisors. Anybody have questions on that part? I have one other update from a conversation with the supervisors, but let me pause there and see if anybody has any questions on what the supervisors had to say about those things.
Did you talk timeline at all with them, Jeff?
No, not yet. Other than I did tell them that we had adopted a monthly meeting schedule. And I told them that I felt that we could work on the assessment of the goals and the development of the state of the county data in parallel, because a lot of the work will be done behind the scenes by NICOG. And I can work with Matt in between times on that. And then we can have a separate effort going on in parallel to start working on reaching out to folks to get grading of the goals. But as far as overall completion, didn't talk about that at all. Any other questions on that part of the update? Did you have some ideas or thoughts on timeline, Dana?
Nothing in particular, just,
Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't sign you up for something.
yeah, that's far gone at this point. So,
Okay, so one other update. I met with the supervisors last week. This week, I'm sorry. Losing track of things. Yeah, this week. I met with the supervisors this week to ask them just status of where they are with regard to the commercial wind ordinance that we had recommended to them back in the end of June. So I briefly walked through the timeline of the activities from the early discussions for a moratorium and on through to present. I recognized that the supervisors had some legal questions and they had to take some time to find outside counsel because the county attorney was not qualified on these matters. But I know that they had a closed meeting with their hired attorney a week or so ago. And so I wanted to ask the supervisors what their intent was with regard to the ordinance that we had recommended to them. And I highlighted to them that among all of the citizens that participated, the overwhelming feedback that we got was in support of the ordinance. And so I was curious as to when they were going to take that up for vote. Their response was they don't have any specific plans to take it up for vote right now. They still have some questions out to their legal counsel. They are significantly concerned about Invenergy's threat of lawsuit if they should pass an ordinance, which is, Invenergy's claim of vested rights can only occur through the courts. And so if Invenergy is bound and determined to claim vested rights that the ordinance does not apply to them, the only way that they can pursue that is through court action. So they would have to sue in the district court to have the court grant them vested rights exclusion to the ordinance. The supervisors really want to avoid that if they can. So they're trying to find ways to move forward and lessen that legal risk. So that's the state of things right now. I do plan to meet with the supervisors next week, just on a personal note, and relay to them my thoughts on actions that they have in front of them and the direction I think they should go. If we succumb to threats, then we lose without even trying. And I really think that they should bring the ordinance up to vote, and the ordinance either passes or it doesn't. And then we take things as they come. So that's an update on the status of the ordinance proposal that we had recommended. So it's essentially just setting right now. All right, so item number 4, Charlie, conversations with North Iowa Area Council of Governments. So Matt O'Brien is one of the members of the council. The council is there in place to help the 8 counties in the north central Iowa area here with a variety of things, and they help the cities as well. So Matt, if you can unmute yourself, if you want to take a minute or two and just introduce yourself and what you do, and then we can take up the discussion of what you and I have done so far.
Oh yeah, so I am Matt with the North Iowa Area Council of Governments. I've been a planner there for about 8 years now, and primarily my background is GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems, and researching. So working with census numbers, American Community Survey, stats, Excel, is preparing the charts, the figures, the maps, and presenting them in a user-friendly document. So Jeff and I have been, I gave Jeff a list I typed up quickly of information that can be included in the state of the county information for the comp plan. And then Jeff gave me responses back, and then I thought through Jeff's responses, and then I gave him my responses back. So it's been back and forth. So ultimately, it's trying to get as much relevant data. There's a lot of data out there, but getting as much relevant data out there as possible. And then my boss said, if you think there's data, like, I didn't tell Jeff this yet, or I might have emailed him. But if you think there's data you want to know, we do have the Iowa Data Center, which is linked to the State Library of Iowa. And my boss has a contact there. So the website, the Iowa Data Center, the website's not very good. It's just basic information. But we can always email them and get a response back on various information to see if it exists or not, to include in the comp plan to address certain issues and goals and strategies and implementation. So there's a lot of, so basically NICOG, Worth County is a member government of NICOG. So free of charge, we can basically do whatever coaching, empowering to help you guys get and the county staff to get the comp plan finished. And then if you need any work where it's just NICOG on its own, it's just me in front of the computer by myself, drafting all the maps, data, and charts. If there's certain stuff you guys are not comfortable doing on your own, the county staff's not comfortable doing on their own, we can set up a contract with the supervisors on hourly charge to just get that done and over with. But ultimately, the hardest parts of the comp plan, Jeff was talking about the meetings and working with township trustees. It's just facilitating meetings and getting the relevant information out of the on the ground information, and including that in the comp plan for the goals and strategies and implementation. And then another issue is just formatting into a user-friendly document. We were talking about the maps where you, in the main body of the document, you want the overall county, but then we want to have insets on the map showing where that township is in reference to the rest of the county. And then ultimately in the appendix, having zoomed in maps showing, the flood zones and all that. So within the GIS realm, it's pretty easy to do. We can, I don't know what Joel's not on the call anymore, is he? Correct? But
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
he has a background in, he does have background in GIS. I don't know how much time he has to do that stuff, but NICOG can always coach him, gathering data and producing the maps. So
Right.
just to make this a better sell to the supervisors to get actual relevant map, it's where you can, NICOG can work with the county and the Jeff, and P&Z on getting this stuff done.
Right. So one of the things that Matt and I had talked about along the way, and the list that he referred to is what I have on the screen right now. And a copy of this should be on the shared drive. So initially I had gone through the current plan and identified the kinds of stuff that was there, and had reached out to Matt. Matt had put this list together, and as he said, we traded some notes back and forth. And so I added some comment in red here, just to explain or clarify or add to some of the things that were on there. But one of the things that I think is important when we put this section of the plan together is looking back where we are and going forward. The plan from 2006 gave kind of a snapshot of here's what the county is, and then it gave projections. And I think it's interesting and it's valuable to look at those projections against reality. And so I think it would be valuable if in some of the things that we put together in this section, if we can show trends, because certainly as you're looking at development decisions and trying to guide strategies, it's helpful to understand what direction certain kinds of things are going. And so that's why you see in here things like, it talks about field use from 2010 to 2019. And, my note saying that we want to expand the trend data to begin at the time of the last plan so that we can see how things have progressed going forward. Ultimately, what we need to do as a commission is look at all of these things that Matt has said that they could do and identify which of these that we want them to work on that we think would be valuable in the plan, so that Matt can turn around and provide a proposal to the supervisors who ultimately have to pay for NICOG's work on this. So that's where we are today, and that brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is review the NICOG options and decide on course. So I guess, is there any of you that that don't have a copy of this, that didn't get a copy or can't see a copy on the shared drive so you can look at it without me scrolling up and down? Okay, so I assume everybody has a copy that they can look at. So rather than go through these things one by one, I think the easiest way to do it would be to let anybody speak up if you have a question on a particular item, or if you look at a particular item there and say, I don't know that this is going to be necessarily that helpful for us to have in the development plan. Then we can talk about those things, and we can whittle this list down until we come up with a list that everybody's happy with. So this is the review open discussion part.
And I will say quickly that probably 3/4 of that, they're like, 2 to 3 minutes to produce that map when you know where the source information is. And once you produce the base map, it's pretty easy to generate, further maps.
Right.
So it may not be relevant, but we can still, if it takes 1 or 2 minutes to produce, you can still throw it into the plan. So guys might not think it's relevant now, but down the line, you could think has relevance, or future supervisors.
Yeah. So on that point, Matt, do you have a ballpark sense of what it would take you guys if you were to do everything that's on this list?
So when it comes to census, the transportation, the housing data, so almost all that is pretty quick. It's when we start talking about, so the soil part, the corn suitability rating, that's more challenging. And then land use cover from the trends from 2000 to 2020. So those are the only 2 things that would take a little more time. But those are more important parts of the comp plan in a sense. So, I mean, at NICOG, we have a lot of projects going on, but without any distractions, I mean, this stuff could get done in a week. It's just that there's obviously other duties that NICOG has that get distracted from it. So I was trying to tell Jeff about it earlier, but the soil suitability, the GIS data, the corn suitability rating is not linked to the GIS data anymore. So then it has to you have to go to the USDA website and manually enter in the corn suitability rating for each type of soil. And I think there was 200 some soils Worth County, which is not too bad, or 100 some. So it's not a quick way to generate the map, but it's not too bad. There's a straightforward process for it.
So I guess what you're saying is this isn't something that's going to be weeks and weeks of dollar expense. I mean,
Nope.
Calendar wise, it may take some time, but cost wise, it's not weeks of work. It's hours.
Yeah,
the
cost is not the part. It's just for me, it's hard to predict the timeline more than anything. So
Sure. Yeah. So setting the
So I go-
calendar aside,
Yeah.
the
So we
effort
just
is,
say,
is
yeah, add up these maps. You say this map takes a minute, map takes a minute. So say you get 10 maps done in an hour.
sure.
So Jeff, are you
I think
talking
that-
right now just maps, or are you talking census stuff too?
Maps and census stuff.
Okay, so I didn't have time today to
And-
go over all the information. And it's been quite a
Yeah.
while since I looked at the 2006 deal, but I have a couple questions right now that I think this is the time for. There's been a lot of talk, especially with our last project, of absentee landowners versus resident landowners. Do we have information either in the old plan or a slot in the new plan for that information? I think that's a growing information that's valuable. And I don't know if that needs to
I'm
be in a
pretty
map.
confident it was not in. I'm pretty confident it was not in the last plan on state of the county.
Mhm.
Now, I did ask Matt, and he sure I think he said that we could do this. We could identify, working with the assessor, which properties are farms versus acreages, and I think he can identify. There was another related one that's not coming. Source of income, whether it's self-employment or wages. But we didn't talk about absentee landowners. My guess is that would be something that we would have to work with the assessor on rather than NICOG.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the census data will say if it's owner occupied or renter occupied, but I believe there is not information about whether it's absentee or not. So you can tell if it's rental or owner occupied.
Okay.
And the other issue is, so we have the 2020 census was just population counts primarily, but then you have the 2021, it'll be the American Community Survey estimates where the percentages are most important. So not the actual estimate numbers they give you, but that should be coming out soon. So part of the stuff we could start using 2019 estimates, but ultimately we want the most relevant information, especially with the past social climate, the economic changes. The 2021 information might be more relevant. So
Right.
but you also get to the point where you want to start updating the comp plan as soon as possible. So I mean, my recommendation is like start with the maps, and then we can go from there with the more census data X.
So I don't know that a Worth County resident versus a Worth County non-resident landowner map is that big of a deal, but I just believe the census is very important. And maybe also, just statistics like landowner ages and as the needs of the county changes, as the population changes, as society changes, some of the things you just talked about, like outside of the county incomes, non-agricultural incomes,
Right.
acreage owners and their occupations. It sounds like you've got some of that covered, but that's.
Yep.
And then the ISU extension, Iowa State has a lot of information, so it's not publicly available, but we can always ask. So like my boss said, just start at the Iowa Data Center at State Library, Iowa, and they'll pinpoint you where to go. So if you have stuff I don't address on the sheet Jeff is showing there, we can always still, even if something I didn't work with before, it's always something we can still, contact the state of Iowa about, and they can direct us correct route if it's there or not.
Right.
So we basically want to address everything the P&Z wants to address before you recommend the comp plan approval to the supervisors.
Yep. So, other questions or comments regarding the list? Things that are on it that you question, do we need it? Things that are not on it that need to be added?
And then real quick, the other thing I'll address is, I brought this up, Jeff, briefly, but so you have the maps, you have the tables that we can have NICOG generate quickly in most cases, but then when you're creating the plan, you always need narratives, just briefly explain each one, which is pretty straightforward.
Right.
So I don't know if you want NICOG to do other county, but it would be easy on,
Yeah.
P&Z or the county staff to do it.
Yeah, I think it realistically, it would be a combination.
Yep.
Some of the things it might be easier for NICOG to add the narration, based on a better
Right.
understanding of what the data is saying. Other times, just about anybody could look at the data and come up with a narration.
Yep. So a lot of
So I think
times,
that'll be a
Yeah.
combination.
a lot of times, you just get, you get Worth County's data, you get the state of Iowa. You don't compare it to the U.S. just because it's kind of a melting pot. You compare it to the state of Iowa, or you compare it to the metropolitan area, which is Mason City metropolitan area.
Yep.
So Worth County is unique that it is part of the Mason City metropolitan area. You have Worth County. Wrote that in the notes to Jeff. Worth County has more people who commute, of residents who live in Worth County, more people commute out to work than work within Worth County. So that's one of the unique things Worth County has.
One of the other things I wanted to point out, I added it to the bottom of the second page, or the bottom of the list on the second page, because this wasn't something that NICOG did or had data for. But the 2006 plan went into county budget and expenditure and talked about different line items, what the big expenses were, what the small expenses were, just broad categories of how the county spent its money and what those budgets were. One of the things I found interesting when we were reviewing the plan is just the amount, well, not just the amount that the budget has grown over the years, but the fact that debt, county debt had increased in the 15 years since that plan was approved. The county debt increased well over 600%. It went from the lowest line item on the budget to the third highest line item on the budget. And as we discussed last month, budgeting and where and how the county spends its money is not, it's not really a zoning issue, but it certainly has an impact on development in the county, and as an adjunct, it has an impact on land use in the county. So since it was in the 2006 plan, I think that we should include that information in the new plan as well. You guys have thoughts on whether we should include that or not?
Well, that's pretty interesting, Jeff. Did it give reasons for that debt, or why there's a change for that debt, or what that debt actually is?
So the 2006 plan just laid out just the broad information, what the expense buckets were and what the amounts were. And then Secretary of State data has county expense information. And as I was going through the plan, you guys may recall that I had created a list about 10 or 12 different things that I thought were really interesting in how it changed from 2006 to today, and how some of the things were along the lines of what was predicted and other things weren't. And that was one of the things that jumped out at me when I did the comparison to what the plan said the county had in 2006 and what the Secretary of State expense data says we have now.
So it was, I'm very green at this part, okay? I didn't do enough research. So would the county debt include, like the building of a new courthouse, or a loan against a building, or a maintenance garage, or maintenance equipment? Is that all included in county?
Anything that the county borrows money for, as opposed to just paying for it out of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
certainly
it'd
those
be
large
interesting if
expense
that was
items
all-
that you're talking about.
to me, that stuff should somehow, I mean, I'm sure it's listed somewhere for public knowledge, but that would be very interesting to know equipment costs versus structure costs, you know, now versus then, or now versus when it gets done again in a few years. You know, for example, we've a courthouse that's got a bad roof apparently, right? So over time, it'd be kind of nice to have it.
Yeah. So if you look at the if you look at the development plan from 2006, it's titled Economic Profile, Local Government Finances. So there's a whole subsection in here, starts on page 18, and it talks about the revenues and other sources, what the budget is, what the re-estimated was in 2004, 2005, what the actual was in 2003, and then goes into other financing sources, and then expenditure, and you know, capital projects, debt service, et cetera, et cetera. And then page 20 gives another table, ending balances, total revenues, total expenditures, and then a graph of the expenditures by category.
Mhm.
So, you know, it was in the 2006 plan. I think we should carry it forward into the new plan. And I think that there should be some work to do some comparison. Again, just from a trend data perspective, and we would have to work with the auditor and treasury office for that information. So back to the NICOG list of things that they would work on. Other discussions on items that are on here? Or do we tell Matt that we think all of this stuff belongs in the state of the county section? Does anybody have anything they want to strike from the list? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve this list and ask NICOG to put together a proposal that could be delivered to the supervisors for them to work with us in putting these things together to help get started on that section 1.
Did Mr. O'Brien, did you have anything that stood out from any other counties that they have that we don't have in this list?
So right now, so the counties they've been focused on hazard mitigation plans. So I've pinpointed that to Jeff. And they're trying to mix hazard mitigation with comp plans, but ultimately, honestly, every county, even Silver County, has an outdated comp plan. Now Silver County is trying to do a comp plan that includes Clear Lake and Mason City and every city, which is kind of something I've never heard of in the planning field, but it's a new thing they're trying to do, just be efficient. And so far, honestly, Worth County is the first county now trying to have a modern day comp plan. So you guys are kind of ahead of the game. So cities are always doing comp plan. I have probably 4 other cities I'm working with for comp plan updates, but counties are usually behind. And it's kind of cool that Jeff and planning zoning is being proactive on getting a comp plan update.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs when the county that's 15 years behind is leading the pack on updates.
Yeah, and Cyril County I'm good friends. I went to grad school, Iowa State, with their zoning administrator for Cyril County. But he's been trying to get the comp plan updated, and his former boss now, who's the HR director of the school district, they've been working on trying to get it updated for a while, and I think their plan is 2004, I think. So They especially need it updated for the future land use map and just make it compatible with the zoning. They're taking the steps. It's just not quick to get the comp plan finished in most cases.
Right.
Matt, I do have a question for you. On like 3B, the soil types, you know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we transitioned from CSR blank to CSR2. I just know on some of our fields that has changed the average pretty fairly decent. Some of them didn't change at all. Does there need to be an asterisk in there as we go that says, okay, yeah, transition to this different number based on, you know, and I'm maybe getting a little too analytical on it, but does that need a little asterisk there or not? Do you feel that's not necessary?
I would say, so we're trying to be user friendly. So we're trying to, usually when you write these comp plans, it sounds complicated, but you want to write it. I was always told write things at 6th grade reading level, and then other planners will say you write it at 10th grade reading level. So you want to make it as simple as possible, but you would have to talk about how you have corn suitability rating 1, which is hard to find in the old data, but it's probably archived somewhere. And then now it has transitioned to corn suitability rating 2. Is that kind of?
And yeah, you and I had talked about that a little bit too, Matt, that that had changed. And again, I'm really big on, well, first of all, I'm very visually oriented. So charts and graphs do way better for me than text. You know, at the same time, though, I believe that charts and graphs need a textual wrapper around them to help explain things. So with that said, you know, I really would like to see the state of the county, the county profile data, to be able to show long-term trends wherever we can. Is there a way to translate? So maybe we have, you know, the asterisk that Justin talked about. We say, well, here's the old data for this time period using this way to measure, and here's the new data under the new measurement. You can't compare those two things. They're different.
Yeah,
But
they're
then
just
is there a
basically
way
different.
to get is there a way to get a third view and say, we're going to translate the old data into the new method, or the new data into the old method, so that we can actually see the trend across those periods?
So with the corn suitability rating, though, so you're talking about corn yield where there is a trend county-wide. Corn suitability rating, like we were saying, based on conversations between Jeff and me, it's based on the soil, the historic soil types, the soil type that's been there for thousands of years. And then if the soil's been stripped away, it's a pit, gravel, quarry, it has no rating at all. And so with the corn suitability rating, there's no trend. So you're going from one way to measure from corn suitability to corn suitability rating 2, but it's not a change on the ground, it's a change in the formula.
Right. I know there's a change in the formula and how they did it. And I was looking for something I had put together before. I don't have it.
And this, ultimately, it's probably a question for us, for the Iowa, Department of Economics or the Iowa State.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the plan, and I was looking at the old data, the data that was in the plan, and then I was looking at, well, what's the current state? A couple of things I looked at. One was the amount of land in the county that is allocated to crop. Based on the USDA numbers that I looked at, the amount of land, the percentage of land in the county dedicated to crop use increased today compared to 2006-ish. At the same time, the CSR rating, the yield, went from, I think it said, these, don't quote me on these numbers, but I think it said it was around 775 in 2006, and the USDA data now says Worth County is at 72, which made no sense in my brain. It was a square peg in a round hole that we can have more land in crop and we can have better yields. How does that translate to a lower rating? Because we went from third highest CSR in the state to tied for 15th or 16th. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so, yeah, basically, I mean, it sounds like we need to bring ISU extension into this. So the issue is all these modern comp plans are being done in Dallas County, these fast growing metropolitan regions, Johnson County, Dubuque, in a sense, they're not focusing on the ag side, they're focusing on housing development and all these, you know, drawing in the residents. And we're getting into more of the ag focus, which is what Worth County should be doing. And so we
Right,
can't
yeah,
look at
'cause
other,
it's a-
yeah. So usually I would say we look at other comp plans, but it's like a lot of the counties, North Iowa, they're all behind. And so we have all this modern day technology and data. And I think we'll have to ask ISU extension basically a specific question, the best route for analyzing data. Sometimes
Okay.
I think, like Jeff, you have the questions. Like I think sometimes they'll just give it to us directly. We don't have to pay for it or anything. And
Sure. Okay.
so they're usually pretty good
Right.
at tracking data, especially since we're an ag state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a preservation of prime ag land is a priority for the state and the county. So.
Yeah, so-
All
Yeah,
right.
ISU extension does a great job.
Yeah. So back to the list. Other questions for Matt on the list, or a motion to approve the list for Matt to be able to put a proposal together? I got all night.
Don't want an eagle map, do you?
I move to approve the list as posted.
Okay. So David made a motion to approve the list as it is posted on the shared drive with the commentary on there. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving this list for Matt to be able to put a proposal together, signify by aye.
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 All right.
Opposed? Motion is carried. It was unanimous. So, Matt, I will send you a copy of this annotated list. And then I guess if you have questions on some of my annotations, and we can chat about that, in the coming days, and then you can put a proposal together for the supervisor. So, unless you have any questions for us, Matt, you're welcome to stay or leave. It's your choice, but I think we're done with your part of this.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, P&Z.
All right,
Yep, good night.
thanks, Matt. Good night. Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion and decision on how we go about, what kind of a process do we want to adopt to grade the accomplishment of the goals. We talked about questioning the people that wrote the goals, questioning the department supervisors, and citizen input.
I almost think we need to get some response back before we can figure out how to grade it. I don't quite know if that was your
Well, I guess-
question.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is what kind of a process would we use to get that? So just to get the conversation started, one of my thoughts was, between Matt and I, because they help out with survey stuff, NICOG, I've got the plan. It clearly lists the goals, and I can create a questionnaire that just simply asks people to
Oh, I
rate
see.
how well they think the county has accomplished this goal. How well do you think the county has accomplished this goal? And just on a 1 to 3, 1 to 5 kind of a scale. Not at all 100%, somewhere in between. And just through a questionnaire. And then it's just a matter of providing that questionnaire to the people that created the goals, give the questionnaire to the department heads. And then we got to figure out, well, how do we get citizen input on how well we accomplish the goals? Is that something that we use just the township trustees for, or do we create a online survey and have an open period of, say, a week and a half or what have you, and we just publish in the papers that the zoning commission is looking for people to go online and take this survey to grade how well the county has accomplished the goals?
I think
Yeah,
we
just
should do. I think you should do
Different
both.
thoughts.
I think you should do both. I like the online thing for anybody and everybody, but I don't. We have plenty of time here, and I think limiting it to a week is just the same as not doing it at all.
Okay.
The word of mouth has to spread. People have to have the opportunity, and they can't be like, oh my God, I got to cram for a jam tonight. I got to get this done. They have to have like a month, not a week, to do this. Because
Okay.
we're in no hurry to get this information in. For example, we also, like you just mentioned, we wanted to target department heads. We want to target the people that built the comprehensive development plan. And that means hard mail them and email them and give them time to respond back.
Okay.
I realize, like we said, a few people are no longer with us. Bobby J, he's living in California, isn't he? Johns Road. I realize email's quick, but you got to look at it. Justin, I think it was you or whoever said the township trustees, that word's got to get out. You got to put that out. So I think we need to directly hit the people we just mentioned, but have that online thing through the county website and get the mailers out, or I don't know if the county can send out a general email to a mass email to everybody, put your notice in the paper, but give them a long time to respond, meaning, a month or something.
Right. Okay. Other people's thoughts?
I've done emailed surveys before and people either ignore them or wait till the last minute. So Todd, I appreciate your length of time, but at the same time, kind of an arbitrary deadline, they're still going to wait till the last minute if they even get around to it. And then they'll still say they didn't have enough time.
Okay, it's kind of like me. Got to have a deadline. Got to be now. I get it.
I like personally, go ahead, Dave.
Can't hear you.
Well,
Dave. You're muted.
okay, Dana, then along with that, I guess I have heard people say, especially when it comes to emails, like dated material, or how did they say it? Help me out here, Dana, where, your immediate response is requested, or there is a time to this so that they don't put off the email, so that they open it up and respond right away. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, I think so. I
That's
just don't
your
know what
world,
the
not mine.
county's, I don't know what the
But-
county's capability is to kind of timestamp some of this stuff or read receipt, request immediate action. I know I
Okay.
get bombarded with emails just in general, so that could be several other people too that just ignore it and
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
even-
I think the email would be useful for department heads and maybe township trustees and us. General public, I think it would be a matter of advertising in the local papers, that were seeking this input and how they go about doing it. I don't think that we would do direct mailing or email. Now, we may explore doing a random sample, some number of people that we ask the county to send mailing out to. You know, that might be an option. But I think for the most part, the people that wrote the plan, we should mail them. I think the county department heads, email is fine for those folks. For the general population, general citizens, I think it's announce it in the paper and give them ample time to do it. You know,
One thing I'd like to bring up, Jeff, is
go ahead.
I agree with everything you just said. The department heads, email. What about, and I know there's few and far between, but what about the people that don't have email? Would it be something as simple? I don't want to say simple, but I was just going through it. You include, and it's a little late this year, but include it in the property tax papers that come out, that questionnaire. They obviously have a mailing list of everybody who owns property in the whole county. Would that be an option?
That's a super good idea. Or good thought, anyway.
Yeah. As you mentioned, though, we wouldn't be able to get that in with the tax information now.
Right.
But again, the county has mailing addresses for everybody. We don't know, and that's why, well, let me back up for a moment. The online aspect, I think that you brought up, Justin, is a fair observation, and which is why I wouldn't use email for the general public. I would use just the newspapers to notify people. But the point that you made, some people are not online. I recall a phone call from a lady when we were seeking input on the ordinance, and she was quite upset that we said that the ordinance was available on the county website and you can email your comments to us, because she said, I'm not online. And I said, well, you can obtain a written copy from the auditor and you can drop off your comments to them, or you can mail them to us. So it's a valid point. Not everybody is online to do the survey. So there's no way for us to know, however, who are or are not. So maybe what we do is in the paper, we say, we want to get people's input. We want to get people's assessment of these goals. Here's an online survey. If you're not online, you can pick up a copy of this survey, a copy of the questionnaire at the auditor's office, fill it out, and return it to the auditor's office.
Well, I was just going to say, we got to back up for a second, because if we was going to mail people, now we're either mailing out questionnaires or we have to do exactly what you just said. They either have to be able to access it online, or they got to be able to have our standard questions if that's how you wanted to try to do it.
Right.
Where they'd have to go in and get a copy, or you have a copy in the paper that they can respond to, or
yeah, and we can
they
talk to the paper
mail
depending on,
in.
yeah, I don't know what this is going to look like yet. We haven't put it together. If it could just be a flyer in the paper or not, I don't know. But certainly we would want to have copies available at the auditor's office.
But I assume we're going to basically go through the development plan and build questions off of their basic outline of goals. And it's probably not going to be 100 questions, of course. And you could put that outline in the paper so people can read that and talk about it. And some people can mail in their responses from that. You know, assuming it's not going to be a long
right.
question.
Yeah. And I'd put it together, share it with you guys, you know, make certain that, you know, you guys think that, you know, the questionnaire works. The questions are being asked appropriately and so on. So what we have for a concept so far is develop the questionnaire. We want to target the people that wrote the plan and we'll mail them directly. We want to target the department heads. They are on the county email, so we can email them to get their input. We can provide paper copies of the survey to the auditor's office and then publish in the papers that we're looking for people. We're looking for this kind of feedback. Provide an online mechanism for people to respond, or they can pick up copies at the auditor's office. And depending on what the questionnaire looks like, if it's feasible, we could include that in the paper. So that's the concept so far.
Were you going to also hard mail the trustees, just like the authors? There was mention of the trustees also being treated the same as a department head.
We can. Okay.
This might be a little
Any
off the
other-
wall. Yeah, this might be a little off the wall, but just a question. What about doing it more like a town hall style, informal, rather than trying to collect all of this via mail or email and then having to decipher all of it?
I would be concerned as to how many people actually show up, first of all. And
Yeah,
would
I
we
mean, I also,
have-
Jeff, I had that concern with sending all this information out too. How many people in Worth County are really that
Yeah,
active
gonna
with the
respond.
comprehensive plan to begin with
Yeah.
and care about it?
Yeah,
Well,
Right.
I'd like to comment on that. That's a double-sided thing again, okay? I think for the zoning commission and for the future operations of the county, as far as getting public involvement, I think that town hall type of thing is an awesome idea, almost like the old 4-H meetings where we'd be in a different place every month where we would go and have our meeting. That'd be awesome. I don't know that it completely fits what we're trying to do right now because you got harvest coming and then you got holidays and to keep us organized and moving forward. I don't know that works, but I love that idea for some food for thought for our future to try to get our different townships and people more involved in what we're doing, whether it's on a community level or on a committee level. I would love to see us start doing things in our different township halls. For example, Joyce has got a whole bunch of brand new buildings. Just some food for thought for the future. That
what if
they
we, what if we did all of the above? We did we put the survey online, we put a paper copy in the auditor's office, we advertise in the paper, we want people's input. But what if we also did town hall? And the only thing that we would have to guard against is, we don't want people responding to survey and then counting at town hall.
Well, it was, so
Double
what if
counting,
they,
if you will.
so what if they did? I mean,
Well, it's going to skew our results. I mean, what we're trying to assess is how well the county did or did not pursue the goals that they laid out for itself.
well, I
If we
understand
have
what you're
a-
saying, but we're asking for community involvement, and it's not like we're going to get a double vote. And it's not like we might not notice that if we do have some kind of a paper answer, if you will, if we're keeping track of the responses. It's not like somebody couldn't mail in 3 versions or 3 answers, or it's not like they're voting 3 times. I'm more concerned about actually getting people to show up and voice their opinion or get everybody involved than if they sent in a response and showed up at a town hall. I think that'd be great. Let them do both. I don't think it's and I don't think the accounting end of it would be a problem for us.
Well, it would only be a problem if we don't have a way to see that, people, the same person gave us a response 3 different times.
Well, that could be as simple as having their name on it. I'm not so worried about people's stuff in the ballot box. You know what I mean?
Well, but that's what they're not intentionally
could.
trying to skew the results, but it would skew the results.
It can.
Because
But
I think people
it's-
are going to be more inclined to, answer these kinds of surveys in an anonymous form,
Mhm.
which means we don't want to be asking online for people to give their name unless they want to. We don't want to tell people that they have to put their name on the form that they fill out and hand in to the auditor's office. And if we don't do that and we have the town hall sessions, then we can't be taking names there either. And I think we have to guard against skewing the results.
Well, then
So
it might be just
we-
as simple as we're going to have to ask people to, a little bit of honor system. Then to, hey, we really only want you to give one response, but we want your
Right.
involvement.
Yeah,
If you mailed
yeah, and
one
so that-
in, please don't do one here, but come and talk. We're going to have to just rely on the honor system.
Right.
This isn't a huge deal. And I think it's more than worth I think this is a great idea that Dana mentioned and that you're talking about. And if we do this, this is awesome. We're asking for people to help. We're trying to get things to go to more of a, I don't know if I dare
But
use
is
the word countywide zoning, but we're trying to get community involvement to make this work, to get everybody on the same page, to be a little bit more together with things that happen in the community. So we're going to have to take some risks. And if somebody gets up and says the same thing twice, well, what the hell? Who cares? They're coming and they're participating.
Are people going to be comfortable? Let's just talk through the town hall concept for a moment then. So
Mhm.
we would essentially be asking a question along the line of, let me get to the goals here. So an easy one that is not terribly loaded. Agriculture and farming. The very first thing listed was preserve prime agricultural land and agricultural uses. Retain productive agricultural lands for ag purposes to the maximum extent possible. Other uses shall be made of ag lands only when no other alternative locations are suitable and the use will benefit to the county as whole. Discourage non-ag residential development in rural ag areas and environmentally sensitive areas. Preserve and protect farming operations as a viable economic entity. Encourage the adoption of soil management techniques. Those are 5 things listed under ag and farming. So
Mhm.
I don't know if we would ask one question related to these 5 things or if we ask 5 questions. But my question for this conversation is, if we're in a town hall forum and we say, how did the county do on discouraging non-ag residential development in rural ag areas and environmentally sensitive areas? How did the county do? And who believes the county did well? Raise your hand so we can take a vote. Are people going to be comfortable in that kind of a forum? I mean, is that how we would conduct the survey? Is just raise your hand if you think this, raise your hand if you think that? I mean,
Well, you had mentioned having a grading scale like 1 to 5. So in a
Yep.
deal like that, you pass out the papers with the questions, and then they got their 1 to 5. They don't even have to answer. They don't have to raise their hand. You can ask the question, maybe we have
So
some
it's not
discussion.
really a town hall. It's not really a town hall then. We're just asking people to take time out of their day to come to a particular spot in the county to fill out a form.
Well,
Well, I
like
think
it's-
where Todd was going, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the discussion part of it. Like to really
Right.
comprehend what that question is getting at, what the heart of that question is. It can be a back and forth dialogue before they then answer that survey question.
right.
Okay.
Right, because we're looking for not just a score on that question. We're looking for input and answers to those questions, maybe some examples where we take notes. This doesn't have to be just to score how some people that show up score what the past several groups of supervisors or county officials did, but also to give some insight and direction for us in our committees and for the supervisors' future goals and for how we rewrite the new plan. That's what we're doing here. So like what Dana just said, we're asking for input and dialogue and exchange. We can take notes of the things we've learned and heard, as well as scoring the goals based on the 2006 plan. So Dana, you're absolutely right, and thank you. I don't know if I re-said that the right way or not. Maybe I didn't even need to say anything. Maybe you said it all.
So the town hall concept, is it 1, 2, 4?
You mean different town
12?
halls?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where you get the trustees involved and figure out if they want to split districts or townships or get together.
Well, just thinking out loud, we have 3 different supervisors, so we should have at least 3 different town halls minimum, right? I realize what is there, 12 townships? I don't remember.
Yeah, 12 townships. There's
So,
and so if you think of the county as a box, there's 4 townships wide, 3 townships deep.
yep. So to me, that answer is either 3 or 12. 12 seems like a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we would want to have to put this on the trustees to do these town halls, because one of the things that we want to have is a little bit of consistency between each one. We don't want 12 different sets of trustees saying 12 different things.
We
So
need their
then
advertisement,
the
their
question is,
assistance, but
yeah. Well, and we're going to need their participation when we get to the point where we're developing the goals for the new plan. All we're trying to do right now is grade the goals that were there and how well the county has done against that. So then, one of the thoughts would be, do we do it by district or do we do it by geography? District is somewhat geography, but we've got some districts that are pretty good sized. I would tend to lean towards just split the county into the 4 vertical sets of townships. So you've got Silver Lake, Bristol, is Danville over there?
what's going to be
Yeah.
the easiest for the people to know when and where they're supposed to be?
Well, we'd have to
voting or by
schedule it.
supervisors or
No, they know what township they're in. And frankly, I don't think we really care. So if we just say, if we just go strip across the middle of the county, and so we hit Bristol, Brookfield, Kensett, what's the township on the far east over at Grafton? Where's the township map?
Union?
Union.
Union. Yeah, Union. Thank you. and just take the middle 4 townships. We pick a spot and say, here's the date that we're going to be in this location. Here's the date we're going to be in this one, just so that people, they don't have to travel as far. We're not asking people from Union Township to come to Silver Lake. We might get better participation in person that way.
Mhm.
There's my map. Okay, so from a process perspective, direct mailing to the people that wrote the goals and the trustees, email to the department heads, questionnaire available online and on paper, advertised in the local papers, and 4 town halls spread across the county on different dates to assess the goals. Is that our process?
Sounds logical. I got a feeling it's going to be an evolution as we go, but it sounds logical.
Yeah, but just as a broad, we got to have some kind of a base plan from which to keep this stuff moving. Okay. Does anybody feel we need to vote on that, or everybody comfortable with that's the plan we're going to pursue?
How quick are we going to try to?
Well, I
And we're
first
coming-
got
we're
to come
coming
up
right up
with
on
what the
harvest.
questionnaire is. Yeah, I first got to come up with a questionnaire, and then we'll have to figure out schedule.
Right. Yeah, we got to go through the question. Yeah. Okay. That puts us after harvest either way.
Yep. All right.
Christmas.
Item number 7, discuss and decision on the process to engage broad county involvement on the development of the updated goal recommendations. So we talked briefly that, once we've assessed the goals, our next step is to take a look, use that information, and then work with community involvement to create the goals for the new plan. I think we talked about, we want to use township trustees. The supervisors were, they approved that concept. They liked that concept. In fact, I asked them, who they thought, and they thought the trustees would be good to start. So, is that the first thing that we do then, is reach out to the trustees and essentially form a committee at large of us and the trustees as a working group to then figure out how are we going to create the goals. My belief is that the best way to ultimately accomplish it is that group develop proposed goals, and then we go through the town hall concept to have, to provide an opportunity for discussion and feedback on those goals, and then ultimately refine them and, by that group. So it would be us and the trustees, draft them, series of town halls discussing them, us and the trustees refine them, and then ultimately zoning commission responsibility to say, here's what we recommend.
Right. So you're talking the first round of town halls to do our grading and input. And then we put the rest of this together and come back with another series of town halls for input again.
Yep, at a later date.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we wouldn't even be working on these items until we get done with the goals and
Yes.
state of the county.
Yes, okay. That
It's
sounds
just a,
logical.
once again, just trying to put together a base plan for this stuff. Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on the process for number 7 then? And does anybody think we need a vote on that, or we're comfortable with, that's our broad plan? Okay. One item that has come up that is not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it tonight, but I want to introduce it tonight, and then we have to pick a time that we can address it. There is I just put my binder away. There's a building permit that has been submitted for a private airstrip, a grass field airstrip in an area that's zoned for ag. And it's listed as principal permitted use in that zone, but it says that it shall be authorized only after the recommendation of the County Planning and Zoning Commission and approval by the County Board of Supervisors. So I would ask if we could meet via Zoom quickly next week to look at this. Well, I'm pausing now because I don't know. Matt, your interpretation of this, would that require, it's recommendation of the Planning and Zoning and approval of the Board of Supervisors.
Yep.
It doesn't indicate that a public hearing is required. Do you think it's just a matter of Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yeah,
We're not
that's my,
changing.
yeah, that's my opinion. I think that they just want, I don't know exactly why they probably did that in the first place, other than just throw it out there to the commission for their use and approval.
Right.
And then ultimately the supervisors. The applicant, I did make sure that they're checking with DOT and FAA, and they are. It sounds like they've got to have approval from us before who's got to attach that to those applications. So
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was my interpretation as well, because we're not changing a zoning. If we were changing a zoning designation, then I think it requires a public hearing. But we're not changing a zoning designation, and it's listed as a principal permitted use. So back to what I started to say before I interrupted myself. Would you guys be able to meet sometime next week for a quick Zoom? I don't anticipate it would be more than 30 minutes, if that long, for us to, and we'll send you the information in advance, but we would need to have it on our agenda to vote on a recommendation, yay or nay, on this building permit.
How short a
Could
notice?
you guys,
How short a notice does the public need to know before we can make this meeting?
24 hours.
Oh, okay.
it's not a public hearing, it's just a meeting in the public. So
Right. It's just
Right.
it's just a zoning commission meeting, so we just have to publish our agenda 24 hours ahead,
Okay.
at least 24 hours ahead.
So next Wednesday works, right?
It does for me if it does for you guys. Is it anybody
Are you
that
thinking,
would
are you
not work
thinking
for?
7 again?
Yeah, 7 o'clock. And again, I would be surprised if it would be 30 minutes.
Okay, I'd have to be out by 7:30.
Yeah,
But I can
don't
make the
think that
7
would be a
o'clock work.
problem. Okay.
I'm guessing with an email to you guys, you'll see the application. It's pretty straightforward, so.
Yep.
I believe I am tied up that night, but is that something that if I read the application, I can just respond to you via email, yay or nay?
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you could, yeah,
Okay,
just render if you're comfortable rendering your early vote without benefit of any discussion that might occur.
okay. All right.
Okay, so we will do that next Wednesday. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
You guys are all waiting for me, so I'll make the motion.
Like I said, I got all night. I'll go run, fetch a beer, and I'll sit here all night.
No, motion made.
Second,
All right. All right, motion, there's a motion on the table to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you all very much. We'll get the permit application out to you guys so you can take a look at it. Matt, can you send that to everybody?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll set up the meeting for next Wednesday.
Yep.
And then our next meeting for the zoning commission, we had said first Wednesday of each month. So that would be October 6th. Be an issue with anybody?
all depends on the weather.
Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See you later.
Trying to figure out how to make this thing quit.